With stealth, skill, and uncanny reflexes, a rogue's versatility lets them get the upper hand in almost any situation. If you are the type of player who wants to play as a total piece of shit, then the rogue class is right for you. Just kidding about being a piece of shit, by the way. But not really. Welcome back, travelers. I'm glad to see you made it. I'm Colo, and today we're going to be talking about the rogue class in Baldur's Gate 3. As with all my other class guide videos, first we're going to go over the level 1 to 12 skills and abilities that every rogue is going to unlock as they level up, and then after we finish that, we will go backwards and go over each individual subclass to see what each one of those has to offer you. So with that being said, let's get into the most basic first question. What is a rogue? Rogues can most easily be described as the lying, thieving, cheating, stealing, selfish character in the party. You're the sneaky guy that nobody really trusts for good reason. There are definitely exceptions to this because there's pretty much limitless possibility when it comes to role-playing, but most people think of rogues as the selfish scoundrel who's going to rob you blind and fence all your stuff. Each one of the rogue subclasses does bring its own little bit of role-playing flair, from the aforementioned thief, specializing in stealth and sleight of hand, to the magical arcane trickster, who uses enchantments and illusions to fool their foes, or the lethal assassin, stepping out of the shadows to make quick work of their foes before vanishing once again. So now that we all have a general idea of what a rogue is, let's talk about creating one. When you first choose the rogue class, you'll have to decide how you're going to allocate your stat points. We'll get into this more in the subclass section, but be aware that the Arcane Trickster can cast spells and will use Intellect as its spellcasting stat. So, if you're intending to make your rogue an Arcane Trickster, your build is probably going to be different from the other two subclasses, just because you have that spellcasting focus that you have to worry about also. Dexterity and Constitution are the other stats that you'll focus on for most rogue builds, but strength rogues are not unheard of. Just be aware that if you're going to make use of the sneak attack mechanic that rogues get, you have to be using a finesse weapon to do it. Even if your rogue is scaling off of strength, you have to be using a finesse weapon for sneak attack to work properly. You will also be allowed to choose skill proficiencies and 2 skill expertise for your rogue to have. Having expertise in a skill is basically just like a 2 times multiplier on whatever your proficiency bonus is for that skill, and under most circumstances you cannot become an expert at a skill that you're not already proficient in. It is possible, but it's through very rare means. And basically all these just equate to a scaling bonus to dice rolls involving that skill as your character levels up. Rogues also begin the game with simple weapon, hand crossbow, long sword, rapier, short sword, and light armor proficiencies. So you are going to have quite a few options when it comes to gear and weapons to start out with, and then obviously there's other ways to acquire other gear and weapon proficiencies, but the rogue starts out with a decent amount of them right off the bat, especially when it comes to pointy weapons that you can poke people with. I mentioned sneak attack earlier, so what is that? Well, once per turn, your rogue is allowed to trigger a sneak attack when they strike an enemy that they have advantage against. This also works in the event that one of your rogue's allies is standing within 5 feet of the target. That basically confers advantage to your rogue for the purposes of sneak attack as well, as long as they don't have disadvantage against that target for some other reason. If you're blinded or something like that, then sneak attack's not going to work because you're going to have disadvantage. Sometimes you're going to find yourself in an annoying spot where you just can't get advantage on a target, or you have disadvantage for some reason, but rogues are really good at getting back into stealth, getting away from the fair fight. You don't want your rogue to be stuck in a fair fight. That's not what they're there for. They're the sneaky trickster character for a reason. Let them use their sneaky tricks. As you can see here on this chart, the additional damage that you can deal with sneak attack increases as your rogue's level increases also, and eventually it's like 14,000 extra damage per hit. That's a made up number, but who's going to fact check it? Who's going to fact check it? 36 additional damage is the real answer. So now that we've got our sneaky son of a gun created, let's talk about what you're going to get as you level your rogue. Second level, all rogues are going to receive a fistful of cunning actions. There is a dash, a hide, and a disengage. And you might be thinking, Colo, I've already had those abilities the entire time. What the hell is going on here? And you would be correct. The difference is that the cunning action versions are bonus actions instead of regular actions. This frees you up to perform an attack in combat and then also hide and re-enter stealth, or hide to get advantage before you attack somebody to trigger sneak attack, or just any combination of things. You can have your rogue use a spell scroll with their action and then also still be able to dash or disengage. Having these things as bonus actions, and then you still also have the action version of them so you can choose, is fantastic. These are amazing. At first glance, they probably really don't seem like they're that good, but I'm telling you right now, these cunning actions are one of the defining features of rogues as a class. It is something that is much more powerful than it first seems. At third level, you're going to get to pick your subclass. And as I said before, we're going to come back to this after we go through all 12 of the generic rogue levels. We'll come back to the subclasses and talk about these more then. At fourth level, you'll get to choose your rogue's first feat. As is tradition in these videos, I'm now going to play a 5-minute montage of different feat throughout history. No, that's actually a lie. Instead of that, I'm going to tell you the super canned and scripted thing that I say in every one of these videos. Feats are great! Make sure you look through them and choose whatever your party needs. If you can't decide, remember what I always say. Ability improvement, more like bowel movement, because it's the shit. Also be aware that almost every single decision you make as far as your character's build and class and subclass and spells you choose and all of that stuff can be immediately reset and then rechosen just by visiting Withers, paying him a teeny tiny amount of gold, which you can then pickpocket back from him. You're a freaking rogue. Steal your money back. Don't let this dude have it. And he'll let you basically rebuild your character from ground up. You can change your class, change your subclass, change what spells you've chosen, change your attribute point allocation, whatever you want to do. Withers can reset your guy back to 0. You level yourself right back up. Bing, bang, boom. Job's done. Here we go. Next, at 5th level, you're going to get this nifty little trick. Uncanny dodge. This bull is like when that one kid, Steven, would change the rules on you right in the middle of a friggin' game. You clearly shot him with your high-tech laser bazooka, which was actually just a freaking stick that you found on the ground that has a handle in the front and a handle in the back, so you can hold that son of a bitch like it's a bazooka and be like, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you found a stick like this. You clearly blasted him point blank with this laser cannon bazooka that you have with a direct imaginary orbital strike. And this freaking guy has the audacity to be like, no, I dodged it. Damn it, Steven. Anyway, Uncanny Dodge actually has a real effect, and it has nothing to do with that long-ass story I just told you. Basically, once per turn, when your rogue gets hit by an attack, they will reduce the damage from that attack by half. As you can imagine, and as Steven so clearly demonstrated to all of us, this is ridiculously good, and throughout your playthrough, it will add up to an absurd amount of total damage reduction if your rogue is getting hit, which they shouldn't be, but sometimes things happen. Sometimes Steven slipped and hurt his ankle on the way home from cheating at games. And sometimes Steven finds himself sleeping with the fishes. That one time. At 6th level, your rogue will get to choose 2 more skills, and they will gain expertise in those 2 skills. You will have to choose from the list of skills that you already have proficiency with. As I said before, it's very, very rare to get expertise in a skill that you don't already have proficiency with. It is possible, but it's very rare. In effect, this is another 2 skills that you're going to be slapping that ×2 bonus on for your proficiency bonus. Very, very good to have. 7th level will grant you this garbage trash ability, Evasion. Yeah, hi there. That was a joke. Evasion is probably one of the single most powerful passive buffs I have ever seen in any game that I've ever played. And obviously, that sounds like a big freaking heaping scoop of hyperbole. But just listen to this. Your agility lets you dodge out of the way of certain spells. When a spell or effect would deal half damage on a successful dexterity saving throw, it deals no damage if you succeed, and only half damage if you fail. So from this point forward, your rogue can only ever take a maximum of half damage from spells that have dexterity saves like Fireball. They are now so friggin' fast that when that Fireball explodes in their face, they are still able to move out of the way enough to reduce the damage by half. And if they succeed their dexterity saving throw, instead of taking half damage like normal, now they'll take 0 damage. This is an extremely powerful tool when you take into account some of the dex save spells that are available in Baldur's Gate 3, and it just makes your rogue an absolutely terrible target for your enemies to choose when they're casting spells like that. If they want to cast a fireball at your rogue, good, because odds are it's going to do half damage or no damage, so that's pretty good. At 8th level, you're going to get your second feat. Same deal as before. If there's any feats you're interested in, take them, try them out. If not, bump up your main stats. Let's move on. 9th level is another bunch of subclass bonuses, so we'll come back to this one. 10th level, uniquely, is going to grant your rogue a 3rd feat, which is not something that most classes get at this level. Most of the other classes in the game only get a feat every 4 levels, so 4, 8, 12. Fighters being an exception, just like rogues. Fighters get access to a bonus feat at 6th level. Rogues get access to a bonus feat at 10th level. Neato! 11th level will grant you the Reliable Talent passive, and this one is ridiculously cool. When you make an ability check with a skill that you're proficient in, from this point forward, the lowest possible roll that you can roll is a 10. Basically, the way I like to think about this one is you don't train until you succeed. You train until you cannot fail. This is where rogues and bards differ a little bit in the role-playing department. Bards are generally known as the jack of all trades, master of none. Very good at pretty much everything, but not the best at almost anything. The rogue is a friggin' master of a few things. They're so good with their skills that they simply cannot roll lower than a 10 anymore. 10 is their new minimum roll, the new baseline. And finally, 12th level is where you're going to get your rogue's 4th and final feat. And that's everything that you're going to get for the generic rogue level ups. So now let's sneak our way back to 3rd level and see if the old thief can't steal our hearts. Thieves use their skills in stealth and larceny to acquire whatever they wish, whether from a 3rd-story window or the depths of a long-forgotten ruins. Thieves are probably what most people imagine when you bring up the rogue class. Your focus is on stealth and getting a bit of additional utility to help you with stealth and sleight of hand both. But the bonuses you get as a thief will also be incredibly useful in combat, so let's take a look at those. The Fast Hands passive is going to grant you an additional bonus action. This right here is probably the single best skill or ability or upgrade or anything that the rogue as an entire class will get. Fast Hands is very good in a ton of situations. The amount of nearly limitless overall utility that you gain access to just by having a second bonus action per turn is insane. Do not sleep on this one. The other 3rd level bonus is 2nd story work. This grants you resistance to falling damage, which may or may not ever come in handy to you, but it can't hurt to have. Apparently the tabletop version of this does almost the opposite and makes it easier for your rogue to climb up walls and obstacles rather than reducing the punishment for falling off of them. And I probably would have preferred the other iteration, the climbing bonuses rather than the fall damage reduction. But feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about this. I love learning stuff about tabletop from you guys because I don't personally play it, but you guys have taught me a ton of stuff about tabletop and I always love hearing about it. And now let's jump all the way to 9th level and talk about the final subclass bonus that the thief is going to get. Supreme Sneak. This basically lets your thief become invisible for 10 turns once per short rest. This is a great tool to have as it can allow you to escape from bad situations or more easily sneak yourself into beneficial situations. Just be aware that this invisibility will end immediately upon performing almost any actions or taking damage. So this is not going to let you slice and dice your way through the room while you remain invisible. That would be badass, but sadly it's not the case. Those are the unique bonuses you'll receive as a thief. So now, let's take a look at a pair of special thieves that I chose from other universes. In this video, I'm going to try to cover one example from Marvel and one example from DC for each one of these sections, so you'll see that right now. We'll get started with Selina Kyle, or Catwoman. She's well known enough that most of you have probably heard of her, and she's even been in a few movies, some of which were even good. Most of the time, you're going to find Catwoman in a Batman storyline because she is a recurring villain and on-again, off-again love interest for Bruce Wayne, and sometimes even an anti-hero. She's played like every role over the years. Catwoman basically has all the powers you would expect. She's extremely agile, extremely flexible. She can sneak into places that most people couldn't fit into. She is also arguably the greatest overall thief in DC Comics. As far as practicing thieves go, probably easily the best one there is. And now, let's talk about Felicia Hardy, or Black Cat. This is Marvel's version of the literal cat burglar style character. And just like Selina Kyle, Black Cat is a recurring villain and sometimes anti-hero, but she's most likely to be spotted amongst the pages of a Spider-Man storyline. Her and Spidey have had romantic relationships through the years, and they've also fought like rivals during that time. She is very agile and flexible, just like Catwoman, with a handful of nifty gadgets that make it easier for her to finish her jobs quickly and quietly. Catwoman carries a whip. Felicia has grappling hooks built into her gloves. Both are used as weapons and traversal tools. Black Cat also has a unique ability to manipulate the luck of people around her, often causing unfortunate events to occur to them. One thing that both of these lovely ladies have in abundance is tricks. And speaking of perfect segues, did you ever hear the story about the guy that invented segways dying by riding one of them off a cliff on accident? What a trickster that guy was. Anyway, let's talk about the Arcane Trickster rogue. Arcane Tricksters are rogues with a clever touch of magic, using illusions and enchantments to keep their opponents on the back foot. This subclass is a bit of a combination between the sneaky, stabby character we've been talking about the entire time and somebody that has access to magic. This can lead to some very fun and powerful combinations of either just straight up rogue abilities and spells being combined, or multi-classing with other classes to have ridiculous effects. Immediately upon choosing the subclass, you will gain an upgraded version of the Mage Hand cantrip. This version of the cantrip will last indefinitely unless you dismiss it or it's destroyed. It's able to access items that other characters are holding, and it can use thieves' tools. This means the Mage Hand can pick locks for you from a very long distance and then loot the chest for you and give you the items. So unfortunately, I have to record this section and add it into the video after all that stuff that I just told you that the Arcane Trickster's Mage Hand is capable of doing, because all the stuff that I just told you that it's capable of doing is the stuff that it's supposed to be capable of doing. I put it in the video because that's what it's supposed to do, and I am still holding out hope that Larian's gonna fix it, but at the moment, the upgraded Arcane Trickster Mage Hand Legerdemain, whatever the hell that skill is called, basically all it does is make the Mage Hand permanent and invisible. That's it. It cannot use thieves' tools like it's supposed to be able to do. It cannot pick people's pockets, pick locks, disarm traps. It can't loot items and give them to you like it's supposed to be able to do. Basically, none of the functionality that this extra upgraded Mage Hand is supposed to have, almost none of it functions. It's not worthless. The Mage Hand is probably, if not the best scouting tool or pet in the game, then it's definitely up there. There are some other different ways that you can summon stuff that can go invisible like this, and those are also great scouters, but The fact that the Mage Hand is invisible and can fly makes it to where basically you can scout out anything with this freaking Mage Hand and save your party from walking into an ambush, all kinds of different stuff. Like I said, I'm holding out hope that Larian fixes what this thing is supposed to be able to do, because it's been a known issue for a very, very long time, according to what I've found on the forums and on the internet. Some people said that this thing used to work in early access. I'm not sure about that because I never played the early access, but it doesn't work now. And basically, unless it gets fixed, it's kind of rough trying to suggest playing an Arcane Trickster to somebody when the main defining mechanic of the subclass is just broken. It just doesn't work. So yeah, I'm really hoping that they get that fixed. Anyway, now I'm going to let you have this dumbass back, and you can listen to the rest of what he has to say. Oh, past me. I had to go and put my freaking uniform back on. Yeah, that's what I'm calling this sleeveless hoodie that I cut the sleeves off of. It's a freaking uniform right here, ladies and gents. I had to put this thing back on and record this little disclaimer because of all the bugs and stuff that people are going to run into. I don't want to tell you that the Mage Hand can do all this stuff, and then you go to use it and you're like, what the hell? This guy said I can pick locks with this thing. You're supposed to be able to. So I'm hoping that they fix it, and then the previous sections of this guide will actually be accurate. If not, then sorry. I told you what it was supposed to be able to do. Here's what it actually does. It's invisible and it lasts forever. And you can shove people off cliffs with it, but you can do that with any Mage Hand. And I recommend trying it. It's highly effective and hilarious. Anyway, back to your regularly scheduled programming. You will also get to choose 2 other wizard cantrips as well as 3 total spells to start with. 2 of the spells you choose will have to be from the Arcane Trickster spell list, which is the same as the wizard spell list, but it only includes the spells from the enchantment and illusion schools of magic. The 3rd spell you'll choose will be from the full wizard spell list, which means that you're going to have a much wider selection to choose from for that one. Make sure you read them all over, see what they all have to offer, because wizards get some really, really cool tools that you can mix and match with different skills and strategies to have a really strong character. Your Arcane Trickster will also gain 2 level 1 spell slots to start with. At 4th level, you will gain another level 1 spell slot, and you'll be allowed to pick another spell from the Arcane Trickster list. And then importantly, you will also be allowed to replace one of the spells you already chose to learn with another spell that you didn't choose. The biggest thing to take note of here is this. The replacement spell list is the entire wizard spell list. So, as you level up your Arcane Trickster, every level you're going to be allowed to swap a spell you know with any other wizard spell from the entirety of the wizard spell list. So pay attention to that. You may end up choosing Arcane Trickster spells that you don't actually want, and then next level, you can replace that one with a wizard spell that you do want. By the time you get this character to max level, you could pretty much have an entire selection of spells that are not even on the Arcane Trickster list at all, because you've swapped them all out with wizard spells that you shouldn't have had access to. 5th and 6th levels are both the same. They're going to offer you one more choice of Arcane Trickster spell, and then each level is going to offer you a replacement spell should you so desire. At 7th level, you will gain a 4th level 1 spell slot, 2 level 2 spell slots. You're going to get to choose one more Arcane Trickster spell and one more wizard spell, and you can swap one if you wish, like always. And as you may have guessed, from this point forward, whenever you choose or replace spells, the spell list is going to include your level 2 spells. 8th level goes right back to the original pattern of choosing a spell and replacing one. 9th level will grant you the magical ambush passive ability. This one will grant your targets disadvantage on saving throws against your spells if your rogue is hiding when you cast a spell. So this just further adds to that class fantasy of being the sneaky guy that can mess you up with magic. Also at 9th level, you're going to be allowed to choose a spell and replace one as you would have expected. 10th level will grant you your final level 2 spell slot, a choice of wizard cantrip, an Arcane Trickster spell, and a replacement spell. 11th level is another choose and replace level, and 12th level is just gonna give you your feat and one final replacement spell, and that's it. So basically, by this point, you've chosen a pretty good selection of potential crowd control spells like holding targets in place or forcing them to keel over in a fit of rafflemow, all the while using your permanent mage hand to investigate and provide recon for the rest of your group. So now that we've seen all the cool shenanigans an Arcane Trickster can get up to, let's talk about a couple of characters that I think represent the subclass pretty well. Just like with the Thief, I'm going to stick to the one from Marvel, one from DC pattern, but just know that pretty much every character, almost every character in Naruto would fit this mold pretty well, because most of them are ninjas that are also capable of basically tapping into magical powers through their ninjutsu. But I digress. Betsy Braddock will be the first Arcane Trickster of the day. Her hero name is Psylocke, and she's a sneaky assassin-style character, but she's most well known for her psychic abilities. She can summon blades made of psychic energy, cloak herself in psychic shadows, making stealth much easier, mind control her foes, and use illusions to distract and displace her enemies. Psylocke is basically an almost perfect representation of an Arcane Trickster class fantasy. And now for our DC character counterpart. This one's probably going to drum up a little bit of disagreement in the comments, but that's okay because I'm the one making the video and I'm going to put it in anyway, even though I sort of disagree with this myself. John Constantine. And the reason why I said that there's probably going to be disagreement is Constantine is pretty much, not even debatably, a sorcerer as his main class, because he is much more focused on spell casting than he is on actually getting into a physical fight with somebody. Even though he's trained and he can hold his own in a fight, he is a god tier level spellcaster. He's able to cast illusions that are so grand in scale that he can fool the entire universe at once, or cloak the entire universe in an illusion to fool somebody. Ridiculous. His actual powers and abilities list is just absurd to read through. It's crazy the things this guy's done. From the illusions that I was mentioning before to just crazy simple stuff like magically poisoning the ice in somebody's drink, causing them to die from drinking the poison drink. So why in the world did I choose Constantine to represent an Arcane Trickster if this dude's clearly a high-level sorcerer? It's his personality. He is a man that will maintain a perfect poker face while he lies to a group of demons and steals their magical artifacts by cheating in a game of supernatural poker. Constantine could very easily be played as an Arcane Trickster in Baldur's Gate 3. However, you would just have to focus more on the deception and illusions part of his lore rather than the godlike magical powers that he often commands. But with a little bit of imagination, anything's possible. And with that bullshit excuse for an example, we will move on to the third and final rogue subclass, the Assassin. You prefer to deal sublime punishment to a single foe at a time. Not in a duel, mind, because a duel implies chivalry, and you're too busy getting the job done for honor. These rogues are focused on one thing and one thing alone: ambushing their target, slapping down 2 fistfuls of Yeetus Deletus on them, and then getting back into the shadows to ambush another unsuspecting foe. Upon choosing the Assassin subclass, you're going to be granted a few passives. Assassin's Alacrity will give you back your rogue's action and bonus action immediately upon entering combat. This might sound strange because you're always going to have your action and bonus action at the beginning of combat, right? Well, no. If your rogue ambushed somebody from outside of combat, which is pretty much how they're supposed to be playing, if you didn't notice from what I was saying earlier about ambushing people. If you get the drop on somebody like that and perform an attack from outside of combat, when combat starts, usually you don't get that action back. You've already basically taken your character's turn. You just took it first before everybody else had a chance to go. Well, assassins, being the drop out of stealth and burst somebody down subclass. As soon as they ambush that person, combat starts, they get that action right back. And then usually they're going to go very close to first because of their initiative roll. And then you can just attack again. So you get multiple hits against the same target as your opener for an assassin, which is good because, like I said before, it's very important that you kill that person. You got to get rid of that target. You don't want your assassin standing there in somebody's face waiting for them to take a turn against your assassin. That's not a good place to be. And speaking of ambushes, Assassinate Ambush is the second passive you're going to get. This one guarantees that any attack rolls your rogue succeeds against a surprised creature will be an automatic critical hit. This usually only ever applies to the first turn of combat because you dropped out of stealth, you ambushed somebody, their whole group is like, oh my god, somebody's attacking us, and they're all surprised, and then you have guaranteed crits against all those people for that turn. So, I mean, you can tell that they're built around their opener being as good as possible, clearing a target off the board, and tipping the scales in your party's favor by getting rid of that person. The third passive adds to this idea even further. Assassinate Initiative will grant your rogue advantage on attack rolls against any creatures that haven't taken a turn yet. So, if your rogue is the first person to go, which they likely will be, they have advantage on their attack roll against every other enemy that hasn't taken a turn yet. And then if those enemies are surprised, the attacks against them will be guaranteed crits. And since you have advantage against them, you can use sneak attack and guarantee a sneak attack crit, which is a ridiculous amount of added damage. And you basically will 100 to 0 burst that target down in most cases and just be done with them. You're going to hit them so hard, they'll crit their pants. At 9th level, you're going to get the Assassin's final bonus. Infiltration Expertise will grant you the Disguise Self Ritual spell. This spell can be used to make your character smaller to squeeze into tight spaces, or to trick dead people into having conversations with you, even if you were the one that killed them. You look different now, so they don't know it was you. Neat! Killing is fun. And that's it for the Assassin Rogue, ladies and gents. Now that we got all that junk out of the way, let's talk about a couple of killers from the comics, shall we? I chose these two because they're essentially twinsies, just like our thief examples. So, for the face of the Assassin subclass, I'm going to go ahead and go with Wade and Slade. Slade Wilson is the legendary mercenary and assassin Deathstroke. He's widely considered to be the deadliest hitman in all of DC Comics. He's mastered pretty much every form of weaponry as well as various forms of martial arts. And on top of all of this, he also underwent a super secret super soldier experiment and now has dramatically improved physical and mental attributes as well as a dramatically increased healing factor. On the other hand, Wade Wilson, yes, that's correct, they even have the same last name, is Deadpool. Most people these days know Deadpool from the live action movies with Ryan Reynolds, which I think did a fantastic job of introducing people that didn't know the character to Deadpool, but just know that in the comics, he is much less mentally stable than you see in those live action movies. Deadpool is batshit insane. His brain is broken into pieces and there's like 5 different personalities going on in his head at once. Also, on another note, this video was made and released before the Deadpool and Wolverine movie came out, and I'm really hoping that that movie is awesome. So if you're here in the future after having seen the movie, why don't you let us know in the comments how it was? A lot of us probably will have already seen it, but that's okay. We can necro this comment section and talk about it. Deadpool, just like Deathstroke, has a ridiculous healing factor. He's been enhanced in a super secret, super soldier, secret squirrel serum situation as well, and is a world-renowned assassin in his own universe. Deathstroke has also actually been quoted saying that he knows of a nerve strike that can harm Superman. So that was a lie. But anyway, he is badass. It's just that nobody's badass when Superman rolls in. Both of these assassins have also been in possession of weapons that can kill immortals or other characters with insane healing powers like their own, or Wolverines. Wink, wink. That might be part of the Wolverine and Deadpool storyline, because canonically, Deadpool carries a sword that can kill Wolverine. So even though these guys have a reputation for running and gunning their way out of a lot of situations, a lot of the time they're not doing sneaky assassin stuff. They're doing guns blazing, mercenary stuff. They are both insanely skilled at stealth and assassination. If that's what the job called for, both of them are master tier assassins. And they both look badass, so they make a great combined face of assassin rogues as a subclass. So with all that being said, let us know down in the comments what you think about my subclass choices for this video. What other characters do you know from Marvel and DC, from anime, other comic books, other games, other RPG stuff, books, I don't care. Any other media you have where you have a cool example of these subclasses in any of my videos, feel free to go down in the comments and tell us about it, because I love getting those lore dumps from you guys. It's freaking great. But that's it. That's the entirety of what the Rogue class has to offer you by itself in Baldur's Gate 3. And the reason I say by itself is because I would be remiss if I didn't mention this next part. I brought it up a little bit before, but I want to hammer this home a little bit harder. Rogues are perfectly viable as a class in Baldur's Gate 3. You can make a rogue and level them to 12th level and have absolutely no problem whatsoever. But, and this is a big but, be sure to look into multi-classing rogues with other classes, because that is where the class really shines, is as a supplement for something else. Gloomstalker Rangers are actually a perfect example, and if you go watch my Ranger video, which I'm going to shamelessly self-promote right here, this little area I can't get my hand properly. Here we go, right here. But anyway, the Gloomstalker is a perfect example of this, because when either combined with thieves or assassins, I've seen it done both ways and they're both good for different situations. But basically, if you take a Gloomstalker Ranger and combine it with a rogue, you, because of sneak attack, because of the extra bonus action you get from being a thief, because of the attack and bonus action reset you get from being an assassin, whichever route you decide to go, it's going to make your Gloomstalker a friggin' nightmare to deal with on turn 1. All that stuff I said about assassins deleting people off the map, the Gloomstalker Rogue combo does it pretty much better than anybody else. You will be able to walk into a room, pick somebody, kill them, go back into stealth, pick the next person, kill them, back into stealth, and you can just friggin' delete targets one at a time until the room is basically empty, and then have the unfairest actual fight you've ever seen. It's great. I highly recommend it. But anyway, that's it. Thank you guys for watching the video. I also wanted to just take a moment to thank you guys genuinely for all the support that I've gotten on the channel. The channel just recently went over 5,000 subscribers while I was making this video, and I've just been absolutely blown away by all the support you guys have shown. I really, really greatly appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I just wanted you guys to know that. So thank you. None of this would be possible without you, obviously, and I just want you guys to know I do appreciate it. There are various links in the video description if you are interested in supporting the channel. There's Patreon, there's coffee, channel memberships, super chats. Any of those things is perfectly viable. And like I said, I greatly appreciate it. None of it's necessary. If you want to just leave a like and a comment, I greatly appreciate those as well. Thank you very much. Thank you all for watching the video. If you want to just come nerd out with us, feel free to come join us in the Discord. That link is also in the description. You want to come talk about gaming or comic books or pretty much anything else that you want to nerd out about, we're pretty laid back, so come check us out. And that's where I'm going to leave this one, travelers. As always, I am glad you get to see me. Do your best to stay alive out there. Till next time. See ya.